I don't think the lines ever stopped. Before that, there's the Bible Museum. I was at the Bible Museum the night before in the tour. So it was like being at the State of the Union. And there was a beautiful video that they had honoring the pilgrims because they're the ones that brought the Bible, the Gospels to America. And so this is kind of a sandwich kind of a thing today because we've got the Bible with the pilgrims at the beginning and the power of the Bible to the pilgrims bringing the Gospels to America at the end. And so this is going to be really exciting. But after we got the tour, and it was profound doing the tour, if you have not been to the Bible Museum, because I couldn't imagine a Bible museum, but if you've not been to the one in DC, this was my first time ever being in there, and the Dead Sea Scrolls are there right now, and it was so powerful. And again, we only got, I mean, you could take, I think there's 7 or 8 different tours throughout it's huge. And it's amazing what you're going to find out. And so we did the brief tour of one section with the Dead Sea Scrolls and a couple of other artifacts so we could get a feel for the museum, and then went to the dinner. There were over 300 people at the dinner, and it was just such a powerful evening. And so I wanted to emphasize that before we got into Saturday, because all the focus was on Saturday. But a lot of people that I know went ahead and got tickets for the Bible Museum tours the day before on the 16th, which would have been Friday.
Can you share just a little bit? I know people have heard
Saturday.
People have heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I don't know that they understand the context. And how they even reemerged. Were you able to gather a little bit that you could share?
Well, it's the original transcripts of the scriptures. And so you can see pieces of the scriptures. And it was amazing. They brought up about Enoch, and they were saying, we don't know, but Enoch was just lifted up, I think, by the Lord. And so I waited till he got done with that part of the presentation. I'm just giving you an example. And several people that I know were with me, and they said, well, it's in her books. I was just kind of raising my hand, and I took him privately aside. I didn't think anyone else heard it. So since you brought up about what are the Dead Sea Scrolls, so it's the history from the fallen angels forward, which is also going to be the focus of the new Mel Gibson film, The Resurrection of the Christ, in 2 parts, because it's that much. It goes from the fallen angels through the resurrection to the actual death of all of the disciples. And so it's going to be a real powerful film and tell the whole truth about that whole process, because that truth has not been known by the people, because Enoch's information was pulled from the scriptures. So when he was talking about it, I took him aside, and I thought I was speaking softly, but I guess it was like a microphone, because the acoustics are so phenomenal in the museum. Everything about that museum was just amazing. And so I really hope everybody gets to go someday. So he was talking about Enoch, and I said, well, Enoch and Methuselah were still alive at the time of the ark. And so they didn't get on the ark. Only the family of Noah got on the ark. Lamech, the father of Noah, was not such a good guy. And so he had died long before. But the grandfather, Enoch, and the great-grandfather, Methuselah, and Methuselah has lived the longest of anyone. I think it's 969 years on the historical maps. And then Enoch, the things that they're writing, and this is what's hard for people to comprehend. They think everything in the Bible is stories, and how can you call it the Word of God? Well, it's what Father did. And these people lived that long. I mean, Seth, the son of Noah, knew Adam for 243 years before Adam died. People lived that long. And Noah was like 650 at the time of the ark. And he had been the voice of truth for more than 100 years, and nobody believed him, so nobody else got on the ark. And even his family didn't get on till the last 7 days. As soon as it was finished, in 7 days, Father closed the back, and the family had just entered the ark. Because everybody was like, I don't know that we have to do this, after more than 100 years of saying the truth. And I was challenged on that, because after I was writing books, and I'd been here 3 years in Georgia, and I'd written 11 books already, I thought, I don't need to write this book about what happened in Georgia called For the Sake of America. I wasn't going to write it, let alone the whole series. I was done and I was going to leave. I'd been here long enough. People weren't that interested in the truth, and they weren't that interested in the information God was sharing with me. So I thought, let's go on to the next assignment. Maybe they'll like it more. And so I'd been here 3 years, and that's when I went to a Bible study and took my widows, and it was early in the morning. And the woman said, "This isn't even a topic today, but you think you've been here so long that you think it's time to go. So when are you done saying the truth?" And she's not looking at me, but I know it's about me because I was the one who was there 3 years. Everybody else was from Georgia. And so I knew that Father was up to something. And she said, "Did you know that Noah was the only pastor in the region and the only one sharing the truth? And he shared it for more than 100 years while he was building the ark, and nobody cared." But he never gave up on the Father. He never wanted to change the plan, whatever Father wanted me to do. And he was the only righteous one. They were hard chairs. I mean, they were just folding chairs, metal folding chairs, and I was sinking in them. That's all I can say.
Well,
and so here I had the chance to say that stuff. And then we went outside and I said some more to this guy who was the tour guy. I didn't know anything else about him. Well, he's a big guy within the Bible Museum. So I get into the dinner, and when I get into the dinner, this husband and wife come and meet, just a beautiful couple, and we're asking me all sorts of questions. And I said, I was sharing that privately with the tour guide in the hallway. And he said, "I was on the tour with you, and I heard all of it." Then he said, "Is there anything else Father has shown to you?" And I said, "Through the years, he shows me everything because I have to correct history, because he shows me the truth, and the truth has to be known for the next generations." And so I was just describing what God has me doing. And then he said, "Anything else significant you'd like to share?" And I said, "Well, the Panama Canal." And I said, nobody could find it, not even the president. And so Father showed me how to find the Panama Canal, and that surprised everybody. And that's in my new book. And he goes, "Oh," he said, "well, they're calling me up front." They call him up front. And that guy and his wife, he's the president of the Bible Museum.
Oh,
and
my
so
goodness.
now they all want me to send my books and et cetera. So this night turned out to be completely different from what I thought. So thank you for asking that question, because I've not shared any of this about this event. This was just all so special, and everything about the event with the America First team, everything was of this quality of everything that we did. I'm just so honored that they're fighting so hard to get the executive orders together, to get the laws corrected, to get all these, because a lot of this is coming out of America First Policy Institute that I've been talking about, because I've been attending their events since 22. They started January 6, 21 because of January 7 because of January 6. So J6 implemented this whole thing and the transition to put this whole team together. And they just had their 5-year celebration when I was in Texas 2 weeks before this. And that was their annual summit. It's in DC and Texas, DC and Texas. So last year we were in DC, and this year we were in Texas. And it's just powerful after 5 years, the growth that they've had, the progress that they've had. They started out and it was like a cubicle with 5 chairs in it. You know what I mean? That's how they started. And now they're getting so much done, and they've got so many powerful people working with them. And there are so many wonderful Americans who want to invest in the future of America that are aligning with them. It's just such an honor even to be a witness, because I'm not a major investor in all of this because I'm a ministry.
But you are a major contributor in your talents and your vision and your understanding from the Father. So that's a big impact. Before we leave Enoch and move on to other things, I did want to underscore the notion that there is a lot of history that has been obscured, hidden, in many cases on purpose, so that our understanding would not be as complete as it should be. And you've called this out on dozens of the videos we've done together. And this was just another example of when people are ready to learn, the information and the knowledge will seat with them. It will ring true in a way that they might have missed before. And you see this coming out from, the notion of Enoch and the book of Enoch has come out from Anna Paulina Luna, from Tucker Carlson, from many who are calling it out, saying, hey, there's something here. This exists in many cultures, why haven't we spent more time talking about it and recognizing it? And thankfully, with your work and so forth, people are beginning to get there.
Well, we're going to talk about the First Nations event, and many in the First Nations had no idea because they've been living a different life with a different perspective. But it was exactly in 1804 when they started in America removing the Native Americans, forcing them out of their homes and off of their land in 1804. Coincidence? In 1804, over in England, it was the British and Foreign Bible Society that was removing those books from the Bible. And to this day, people still think the Pope canonized some and didn't canonize others as being real or whatever. That's very interesting because Catholic just means universal. So they call it the true religion because they were told it was the only true religion. But what we still need to comprehend is that Holy Roman Catholic Church, and I'm sorry, but Holy Roman Empire was the first world order, and it was a world order of government, church, and instruction of the people. And that's the same. You're going to find this in everything I'm sharing today. So I don't want to spoil what we're going to be heading into because everything is dovetailing together, and I'm going to be able to show it to you and what we're going to share today. But in 1804, all that was happening, and it was new news to them when I met with them last weekend.
Just another facet of what we're learning. Let me bring this up.
You remember Pastor Lorenzo from the inauguration?
That's right.
He was going viral before he was even done speaking. I mean, as soon as he opened his mouth and the comments he made, people were so amazed. Who is this man? And he was honoring his bishop. That's the man in the suit next to him. So I was able to capture the two of them together in a photo. And that was during the prayer breakfast early on the 17th before we went to the mall.
That was fascinating. Was this also at the Bible Museum or at hotel or?
Oh, no. All of this is different. The Bible Museum was the night before on Saturday night. And then this is Sunday morning, the 17th. And this is the prayer breakfast. And that was at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Okay. But we didn't see Brooke Rollins. She's the new ag secretary for the president. She was pulled away last minute into something else going on. And so she wasn't able to be there.
This is one of my favorite photos. This is amazing. Tell us about this.
Well, this is, as we were leaving, I noticed him and asked if he was going to be going to the First Nations event in Kansas City. He didn't know about it. So he was asking me about it. And within a few steps, and they said it was 4 blocks. I think it was about a mile. It was so many blocks before we could turn around because all the press area and everything for the mall. And so we had to walk a long distance from the U.S. Department of Ag to get down far enough to come around and get in the lines, which had to be before the mall. You see what I mean? And so, and the lines were so long, even though we were considered special guests and had special tags, because they did set up folding chairs for us. That had a spot. But as you can see, he put his arm around me and he just was making comments and asking questions. And I got to hold the cowboy hat every time somebody stopped him for an interview. And we walked all the way there. And now we're still in communication. And now I'm his sister. And he sent me the videos of the interviews so I could have those. And if you want to share those, we can. And then when he got back to, he's from Southeast Montana. He's in the Crow tribe. And guys, they need prayer. They need prayer of believers because they're going through major struggles in these tribes. You talk about people who've been lied to and people who've been cheated and betrayed, and the treaties were never honored, and the land agreements were never honored, and so they've just been through a lot. And so, but I'll get into that when I get to the next weekend, which is the Native American gathering of the First Nations. And so, but this is Donald Stewart III. Of the Crow Nation, as I mentioned, in Southeast Montana. And they've just been going through a lot of things. And he could not come back to Kansas City after just being in D.C. But Father made many, many, many connections for him. And I introduced him to several podcasters. And so he was doing interviews during the event at the mall.
That's great.
And there we are at the event.
This is part of the front stage. I may superimpose another picture or two that shows the expanse of it. It was bigger than I had expected it to be, and the sound was amazing. They had done a very, very good job, in my humble opinion, in putting together sound system and an AV system so that people could see even those that were quite a ways back. The event took up a little more than half the entire mall. And so you're talking hundreds of yards from front to back. And even in the back, even though it was allowed to because of the crowd, people could still hear reasonably well and could still see the speakers and so forth. It was I think, relatively well put together.
Well, I shared this one because this is what's important. That's the Freedom 250 that we're operating in now. The rest it was an open stage, and the background kept changing. And so I shared this picture because this tells you how deep they were hoping that people would stand in their faith, because what George Washington had was reverential fear, and it was proven by the Native Americans. There was a chief who visited him 15 years later, and he said, I'm a much older man now, but it was important to travel to you because I know I shot you with my rifle at least 17 times, and my rifle never misses, and nothing touched you. And my guys were his troops were his warriors were also shooting, and because they had the process of let's eliminate these people by cutting off the head of the snake, cutting off the leaders, and then the troops will scatter. And that's not what happened. None of them were injured. None of them. And that's the kind of prayer. And so the reason I shared this photo is because that's what that covers. The rest of the stage kept changing all the time. And it was a large stage and then another panel like this on the other end with a flag waving. So
the background photo, or the background painting, I should say, is relatively famous. I believe it depicts George Washington early morning in Valley Forge, if my history serves correct, praying for the future of the country and the movement, because they were in Valley Forge was a desperate time. They had a lot of trouble getting through that winter, and so he prayed and found belief and faith in going forward, albeit, if I recall correctly, he was given a thought that there would be challenges in the country's future, several of them. And it's one of the reasons I think that this painting has become so prevalent and such a moniker, if you will, for Freedom 250 and the celebration that's going on this year.
Oh, and our President Trump is praying the same way. When you pray in reverential fear, Father, what is it we need to be doing together? Because it's all aligned with the Father. That's the only way to get through what they got through, and it's the only way to get through what we're going through. So, yes, that's representative, as I mentioned, reverential fear. And reverential fear is completely different. It's not having fear of the world. It's fear that you're not aligned with the Father and you're in this alone. And so I'm sorry I didn't describe reverential fear, but yes, it is that famous painting. And then the very next day, there we were at the AFPI offices, and there was a Q&A by Martin Gillespie, amazing man. His background, he was in the Heritage Foundation. Many of you have heard of that before he came to AFPI, but he's been with them from the very beginning. He's a very wonderful man. And I'm not kidding, in the moments when he has to just take over and grab the mic and take over, I have never witnessed somebody who impromptu can always have humor, always have the facts straight, and fill the moments without hesitation. It's been amazing. And his Q&A of Sean Spicer was absolutely impeccable. The questions that he was asking and what he brought to the fore was just completely amazing. And if we can pull up the book title, this is his new book, and he did a book signing for us, which was just awesome. And it's all about the revolution that will permanently transform America. And that's what he's calling Trump 2.0. He conferred about 45, as you'll see at the bottom. There's a foreword by President Donald J. Trump, 45th and 47th U.S. president. We know the difference because he was also 46. But it was a different structure in 46 because he departed from the White House and from D.C. But he confirmed with our military September of last year. I was your 45th, 46th, and 47th president. So the military would understand. You may have thought you got away with things because Biden was your president, but I want you to know nobody's getting away with any of it. It just was a powerful time. We covered that at that time, and I'm so proud of what we were able to share at that time by having that information available. So, and then Sheila's car flew through the rain. I went from DC over to Kansas City, and a lot of you already know and heard 10 years ago when this Cherokee chief from Oklahoma received my first book in the series in early 2017. And the day he received it, he made his wife and his sister get in the car, and his wife and his sister were with him this last weekend in Kansas City. And the three of them alternated driving so they could be there within 24 hours because there was this author in Georgia who was going to be leaving because she finished the book and it's out, and the president had his second copy, and so many things were happening that I felt I was done and I was leaving Georgia. And so she warned him, if you don't come soon, you won't get to meet her. And so he came right away. And what are the chances a decade later that this man, I'm invited to this event because we're working on getting the song out, No More Trail of Tears. Mm-hmm. They're done with all this forgiveness, and because forgiveness is up to those of you who held issues against them. It's not up to them. And so they're releasing it. So No More Trail of Tears is a powerful song. Matt Struck did it, the same man who videotaped all of this weekend, who made sure that I was invited this year, which was powerful. And when I called the woman about being invited, she ended up saying that they were going to honor someone who did this amazing prayer in his native tongue last year. And I said, well, was it a chief? And she said, yeah. And I said, Cherokee? And she said, yeah. And I said, is it Oklahoma? And she said, yes. I said, well, then it must be Clifton Pettit. And she said, well, how do you know Clifton Pettit? So I told her, and she said, yes. She said, so this year we're going to be honored. He's going to be the main. There's a bunch of guys that were honored for different reasons. Mm-hmm. But there's always one honoree that is the main one. And this year it was Clifton Pettit. So when I got there, he'd only had the first book in my series. So when I got there, I had a special box, a gift box that had the whole 5 series of the book. I'm not done with 6 and 7 yet, but the first 5 were in the box. And so he and his wife spread those out. And then I showed him the new book. And then I showed him the devotional and explained to him how powerful it was that it ended up being in Hebrew 1 through 7 more than 52 times in priestly blessing. I'm telling him all of these details. And he said, and I've got a surprise for you too. So I kept looking, is there going to be, because everything was in gift bags, gift boxes, all this kind of stuff. And he had a surprise for me. So I was waiting. And that was on Thursday night when we got together the first time for a dinner and gathering. And everybody was meeting each other, major meet and greet. And then on Friday, we went all day. And that's when they gave the honorees all gave their stories and received a blanket. They receive a blanket wrap. They're beautiful. They're designed for each honor. And so all made special for them. And so the women were honored first and then the men. And then, of course, he was in the evening after the dinner. And then when he came back on Saturday, and this is Saturday, and the place was called the Convergence. And the Convergence is that it's where the Kansas City River and the Missouri River, I grew up along the Missouri River. I didn't know there was a Kansas River. The two rivers come together and you can't tell the difference. Once they blend together, that's unity. And so that was the reason why they got there, because they've been praying for reconciliation and unity. The forgiveness is up to whoever's going to forgive themselves for how these people were treated and what was done to them and everything else. They're not asking for that. They want reconciliation and unity, and then we can resolve our issues together. Do you see what I mean? It's just powerful. Yep. So when he got there, he said, this is my surprise. He literally, this is my surprise. And then what he's got on, it's called a wampum belt, WAMPUM. And as you look at that belt, this is what's so amazing. So if you look at the right, and on the right-hand side, you look at the first letter is an A. Remember the slanted A on the eclipses? Mm-hmm. That's Aleph, truth, life. It's a tight relationship with Aleph, the Father, the Lord over all. Then you see a big M. M is Mataniah, Mattaniah, another Hebrew word, and it's God's gifts. What that means is God sent us as a gift to this world. We forget that we're a gift. Can you imagine? And then God sends us with gifts to help in the world while we're here. So he sent us to the world as a gift with special gifts to do what needs to be done so it becomes on earth as it is in heaven. And what a way to see this, right? Then you see the two hands together, and it's supposed to be a male and a female, uniting the believers, all men, all women, together in truth with the Father. And then if you'll look at the center that's bright white, only those white tiles go down into the unity and the M and the A on the right. And they go all the way through the wampum belt to the other side. And that's the only path that goes into heaven. So when you are with the Father in truth and life, and you are remembering the gifts he gave you and working with him to express those gifts while you're here in unity with the other believers, then there's one narrow path. Remember, narrow gate, narrow path.
Mm-hmm.
And that narrow path, as you look at it closely, only that white enters into heaven. Nothing else does. Remember, I've shared about the salt shaker, pepper shaker. And he said, are you the salt of the earth? And I said, well, I hope I am. And I hope I have good flavor, because I just read that scripture that morning. Mm-hmm. And he said, so do you want to surrender unto me? And I said, I hope I have. And he said, do you want to align with me? And I said, I hope I have. And I want to stay there. And he said, well, then you are with me. And I said, because I want a simple message to share with the people. And he said, everything else is not. And that's what this wampum belt is. Only that white narrow path up the center. Everything else is the world, temptations, what the world wants you to do, money, greed, pride, all that stuff is separate. If you stay on that path with him, that's the path to heaven. And do you know what this wampum belt is? It represents the original Bible. And he confirmed they didn't have the Bible until the Gospels were brought by the Pilgrims. So there I was at the Bible Museum at the beginning, 2 weeks before, the weekend before, and 2 weeks from now. Back then, the Gospels are being described in the Bible Museum and the whole history of the Bible. Okay. And then here he's saying, and the Pilgrims brought it all, and he's saying the same thing. They had nothing but this wampum belt. And they stayed that tight with the Father, etched the 10 Commandments in stone. And I met a couple from New Mexico, and he's running for lieutenant governor. I hope he gets there, because one of the chiefs of the Navajo was supposed to be the MC, and they didn't get there till the afternoon. So he was doing the MC work all day on Friday and filling in. But he said, I want to know. Thursday night, they had me talk about, because this honoring that happened on the Friday, when they honored the men and the women, that was Savan 6. And Savan 6 is when the 10 Commandments were given to Moses. Savan 6 is exactly when Father sent the Holy Spirit to the upper room for the believers. You see what I mean? So Father's things are all done on perfection. And Savan 6 was May 22, the whole day of honoring of these Native Americans from the First Nations. Okay. And so I was explaining that, and explaining that the resurrection was 3 days later. We can stop the Good Friday to Sunday Ishtar Easter because resurrection is 3 days later on Nisan 17. And then I said, and the way Father confirmed all of this, I said, is everything like this? And he said, well, tell my people, they will know. Moses came on Adar 7. That's when I sent him to earth. And on Adar 7, I walked him up the mountain, and he was no more. So the dates are important to me, and they are important to the people. And so that's why I stood up and mentioned that. And afterwards, everybody was like, well, who are you? And where did you get the information? And who gets it to you? And it was the same thing at the Bible Museum. I didn't want to tell you guys until now, but at the Bible Museum, what they were saying is, so you know our Bible scholar here at the Bible Museum? And I said, no, sir, I don't. Well, do you know these 3 scholars? They were naming all these Bible scholars. I said, no, I don't. Well, who are the Bible scholars you're working with? And I just pointed up, and I said, the boss. Everything comes from him. And that's why the president was laughing when he said, I've run out of time, but he thought it was funny, because it was the boss also that gave me the location of what happened with the Panama Canal. So we would know that those treaties and the whole process was all invalid. It's not lawful. And so it was never processed. And so to say that Father's Land ceases to exist is a complete lie, just like all the other lies that we have to correct in history. So this was such a key moment for me. And I just reached him yesterday. He's been very, very busy. And I just reached him for a few moments yesterday. He was in the middle of serving people at an event because they're all servants. They all serve the other people. And it's all about the people. How different is that from how we have become in America? And I said, that wampum belt was so powerful. And I've been sharing that exact message in so many ways, to be tight with the Father, unite with believers, do it. I mean, that's the way through the storm. Only Father knows the end from the beginning. And this wampum belt expresses all of it. And I said, I've looked all over and they're crazy looking. And I said, the only one that makes sense is the one that you wore. I don't know where I could get something like that. And he said, well, let me take that to the Father in prayer and just see what he says to us. I said, okay, that's fine with me. Thank you so much. So we'll see what happens with that. But I can't find anything like this out there that resembles what he had on. And it's exactly the original Bible. And that's all they had from 612 BC when they came to America, and 1620 when the Pilgrims brought the Gospels in print.
Wow. You also had shared this pretty picture of you and this nice lady. Tell us about this.
This is Mary Faust. She's from a different tribe that's not as easy to pronounce as a Cherokee, but she's very, very powerful, a major intercessor for the ministries of the tribes. And she read something in her native language and then in English, and then said it was a special prayer that was prayed over our nation back in February and then again in October of 2016. They knew there were changes afoot for the country from the Father. They pretty much knew that it was going to be President Trump. They knew that there were going to be major things that were happening. And I think it'd be powerful if we could share that prayer. And I don't know if you can make it available as a PDF. I don't know if that works when you share a video.
We will try to. We'll find a way to at least include a link to it. Are you going to have it up on your website?
I can check with the guys. We're going to put it in. We're going to put it in the newsletter. So if you're not getting the newsletter, it's going to go out on Monday. So quickly go on this weekend, and when you go on the contact page, fill out the subscription for the newsletter, because you write to me asking me to add you to the newsletter list, and it comes out of the website. So we don't have any our email list doesn't have any connection. It's already loaded. And then if you want, because we have to, that's a lawful thing now, we have to have you choose that you want our subscription to a newsletter. It's free. I know it doesn't cost anything, but just go on and fill it out. Your first and last name and your email is all it takes. And then just submit it, and it'll be on the computer. They're going to ship it out on Monday.
We'll find a way to get people a link in the video description below. So that you can access either Sheila's website to get the prayer, or wherever the prayer is going to be, so you can access it and share it.
Well, this is Mary Faust, and this is the prayer. So if you want, I can go ahead, or would you like to read the prayer?
No, please do. I'd love to hear you read it, please.
Well, I love the title. It's Power to Forgive. It's not just a prayer to forgive. It's gaining the power to forgive. And it was read by Mary Faust, and it was read over America in D.C. by the gathering of the First Nations in February. And then they went back and did it again in October of 2016, right before the election. I think the date was around the 25th, 26th of October, right before the election. And I think it was 7 days before the election, but I don't know. It was the end of October. And then February, I'm pretty sure it was February 5. Because that was another 7. Because everybody's operating in 7s. Are you noticing that? Because 2016 was a 7-year 1-6 in the 21st century. So this is what they said: we the people, the host people of this great nation, and the original lovers of this land, stand united with one heart and mind to bring the power of forgiveness to bear. As the host people of Turtle Island, We forgive every atrocity and broken covenant ever designed to destroy us as a race of people. We break every curse and renounce every lie, purposed to decimate us as human beings. We forgive the government, the church, and the education system for the use of residential schools that attempted to destroy our culture and silence our voice as people by stealing our language. And before we go to the next half, you guys, do you see? We're all dealing with the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
What the government has done to us, we've lost our homes, we've lost our land, seniors are losing their homes, the church and what it's done. And you guys need to check out videos. There's videos about the Joni Lamb funeral, and a major megachurch pastor was majorly exposed and revealed for how they're operating in those videos. They're on YouTube on ROYS Report. And then friends of the Lamb family confirmed the same thing. And so that video is available also. And that was done a few days after. And that's the church and what's happened with the church. We've talked about pagan Gentile and Constantine Church and how bad it's become, like a pyramid process, and it's all about money. And then the education system and what it's done to our children to ruin our culture in this nation. They were saying this. They've dealt with the same things. Every nation, again, an eternal plan book came out. Those 45 points have been used to not allow souls to get to heaven, to ruin America, and to ruin nations in the world. And that's what we've got to turn around. So the second half of this is we stand in the gap for those who are unable or unwilling to forgive, and call upon the Master of life to forgive us for harboring unforgiveness, resentment, hatred, bitterness, and rage. We repent of every curse spoken over America by our ancestors, and we release the power of forgiveness to bring healing and the peace of Creator God to this land. We declare and decree that our voice will no longer be silenced, and that this nation and the world will hear our voice as we speak life and blessings over the Americas and the world. We stand in faith, believing that our citizenship lies in heaven, and we too all await the return of our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. Being all of one mind and heart, having compassion for one another, we declare our love as brothers, not returning evil for the evil perpetrated against us. But on the contrary, we choose to release a blessing, knowing that the Father of us all has called us as his children to bless and not curse, that we may inherit a blessing. Amen. And remember, amen means our Father is a faithful King. How powerful was this happening in 2016 that none of us knew about? And I was so honored when I heard her read that, and I asked her for a copy of it. And then she ran up as we were grabbing a lunch at the food trucks and said, "Can I get a picture with you?" And I'm so grateful to show you what a beautiful woman of God she is. Mary Faust.
Let's take another look. Isn't that
Just
fascinating?
look how pleasant in the midst. I mean, they have been to the atrocities they've shared. We have no idea. And how they put them in the separate schools and even shunned them from the education leaders, thinking that they shouldn't even learn how to do anything. And they could never share their own language. They couldn't share their own testimonies. Everything had to change. And and I've talked about the rabbit fence over in Australia with the Aborigines. If you've not seen that film yet, please rent or purchase. It should be inexpensive. It's called The Rabbit Fence. And it's about 3 Aboriginal girls who walked back from the schools that they took them to, because they made them live at those schools and completely be away from the Aborigines, to not be raised the way they should be raised. Again, it all comes back to the Pilgrims and the Faith Monument and the scriptures. And they don't want them raised that way. The world wants to control them. And so the 3 girls walked back home. Then they captured them, took them back again. And the 2 sisters of the 3 walked back home again. And then they let those 2 sisters stay home. But the rabbit fence is a long, 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 long journey, and very tall fence. And they they went through the hassle to do it 2 times and were finally let alone to live with their family.
I believe in this last couple of years, it was one of the sequels to Yellowstone that portrayed the plight of Native Americans, in that the children were forcibly removed and required to attend school, and the schools were run by the church, and it was an abusive environment according to the way it was portrayed, and they did things to escape. Some were harmed. Thankfully, some escaped, but it was not in their best interest, nor in the best interest of the country, as to what was being done. And to your point, there's so many examples of this happening, not just here, but in other places around the world. It's a pattern when you look at it that way.
And the crazy part is the anger was against the darker skin. And you can see after all these years and all these families and all these marriages and everything else, she still has beautiful darker skin than I do. And you can see why they called us pale face. And people are so upset. I put that picture in of the 1800s of a female Cherokee chief. They thought that was disrespectful. And I said, what you don't understand is the picture I showed originally, it's in a garden, in a sculpture garden, honoring Christ in Georgia. And the man, I think his name was Gutierrez. I can get it for you, but there's a garden that he's left as an inheritance to the people. And he saw Christ and walked with Christ many times and never saw him as a light-skinned person. Saw him with Native American hair, appearance of hair, First Nations, I should say, the First Nation people, which are the tribes of Israel, and the dark skin, and did a brass statue and made the brass even darker because he wanted it to be realistic. And so he said, those of you who think that because they say Jewish people are lighter skinned. So, but that's man's interpretation again. It's not meaning that it's the truth. And so don't be shocked. And they even said, don't be shocked if you see Christ and you don't see him as a pale-skinned Jewish appearing man, because he wasn't Jewish. It was the top people in the synagogue that sent him to the cross. Yeah. Felt that he had committed blasphemy against the Father, because he said, if you've seen the Father, you've seen me. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And considering himself to be the I am. And here's what's amazing in Hebrew. It's Ehad, E-C-H-A-D, but it's pronounced Ehad. I just was corrected the end of March at an event in Florida, because you don't pronounce the C, just like the challah bread starts with a C. So everyone calls it challah bread, but it's challah. And even though the C is there, it's silent. And it's the same in E-C-H-A-D, Ehad. That means absolute unity. Father and Son and Holy Spirit are one. They're not 3 in 1. 3 in 1 is the other kingdom. And you see the depiction of that in my books, the Brahma, the Vishnu, and the Shiva. Mm-hmm. They have 6 legs, 6 arms, and it's 3 in 1. And so, anyway, with this powerful structuring and understanding the Bible at a different level, understanding the Native Americans, hopefully at a different level, it was such an honor to be with them. And I'm going to be in touch with several of the chiefs. They gave me their cell phone numbers and want pictures and information on the books and to share with the people. And so it was a very, very unique weekend. Now, the black leggings did not appear. I told you guys they perform in their military uniforms, and they tried to arrange it, but it's an annual thing. It's closer to Feast of Tabernacles, and you guys know why that follow me. Feast of Tabernacles is when you come away from everything else and you come and celebrate and worship the Father. It's an 8-day celebration, and Christ was born on the first day and circumcised on the 8th day. And all of these things I've shared in the books and in the interviews. And so it's going to be in that October time frame. I think it's going to be in Oklahoma, but because they were telling me, they gave the history of it, and the Kiowa came in from up north in Montana, went all the way down into Texas, and then our government forced them back up into Oklahoma. And so I learned so much by being with them this weekend of all the different tribes and all the things that they were told they had to do, and every tribe was told different things. And does that not sound familiar with how the government treats all of us? And so Everything is the same. It's just, and that's all the division. They tell us about the black people; those stories are wrong. Now they're telling everybody about the white people, and those stories are wrong. And they told us about the Native Americans, and those stories were wrong. So, so let's come to truth. And if you're going through any struggles, may this have encouraged you today. But I think what's next is a special video, isn't it?
It is. I wanted to share one thing, if I might. We've spoken frequently about how occasionally, in addition to what you bring forward, truths will come forward sort of on their own that underscore what you're talking about. And we had another one, I believe it was just before the Washington event, and it talked about the Native Americans, and it was from an anthropological standpoint. They talked about the background of the Native Americans, but in that they had done some DNA studies that were fascinating. And they showed connections between tribes, between areas of the country. But more importantly, they found markers in many of the tribes that went where they were consistent with DNA ancestral markers from the peoples of the Middle East. And it was fascinating. And so once again, we have data, observable data coming forward that supports exactly what you're talking about. There's a history here. There's a connection here that has been, we've been guided away from, perhaps. And as we learn it, facts are coming forward which support it. And I found that just fascinating. I didn't look for it. It showed up in something I was looking at several weeks ago, and I thought, holy mackerel, here we are,
Well, when I mentioned the guy in New Mexico, and I had said that that we benefit from the fact that ancient Paleo Hebrew was etched into stones in many of the states of the Ten Commandments as it to preserve the truth. And when I mentioned New Mexico, this New Mexico couple came up afterwards, the one that's running for lieutenant governor in New Mexico. And he said, well, I certainly would like to see a picture of that, and I'd certainly like to see where it is. And here's another amazing fact that Father shared, because I was asked by the First Nations coordinator for this event if I would have time. And again, Juan was going to be at this event, and then he had an international trip he had to make, and so he wasn't able to go. And so he sent message, and I sent pictures back, and so we stayed in touch about the event during the weekend, but he wasn't able to be there. And so when I mentioned this to this man about this etching, I sent a picture that night of what is in the book, and it's in ancient Paleo Hebrew. I said I had it studied, and it's in Las Lunas at Hidden Mountain. Now, what the First Nations coordinator had asked me before the event, the very day she was inviting me 2 weeks before, the very day I was invited to the AFPI thing in DC, all of this was happening at the same time. And she said, we have a hidden mountain here in Kansas City area, and we wondered if you and Juan could come to Hidden Mountain. And where is the Ten Commandments in New Mexico? In Las Lunas, they're Hidden Mountain. So those amazing artifacts that they hid on purpose for protection. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So now I'm really excited to get back to Kansas City with someone like a Juan to see what's in the Hidden Mountain there.
Oh, that's great.
So there's so many amazing things happening, because when you learn truth, you can't stop what's coming.
That's right. You spotted a very, very interesting video. Perhaps you could explain a little bit of your observations about it, and then we have it prepared so we can show it next if you would like. But I found it to be just in direct line with many of the things that you've shared about, not trying to make ourselves the center of things, but simply rely on the Father to guide us where we need to go. Please don't let me put words in your mouth. But
the Twitter, can you pull up the Twitter? I retweeted it today. There's a person that's communicating with me a lot, and I really appreciate you guys that communicate the things on Twitter. because I'm only doing the emails on the website and responding in Twitter, a little bit on Truth, but there isn't much activity on Truth, and I haven't set up Telegram to be communicative. And Facebook, please don't send messages to Facebook. There's no time to also go to Facebook and do that. Please, instead of sending a message in Facebook, come on the website and send a contact form so we can be in communication. I can't split myself that many places because I'm not getting any personal communication done because I do have a life in the midst of all of this. But on Twitter, there's I sent it out today. I received it from No, and then it's CO-incidents, no coincidence, and a woman named Betty, according to the ID on it. And I sent it out with my devotional. And because this was to me, that is because it's called Unbreakable. It's by an amazing guy who has a channel on YouTube called Awakened Warrior. And he has several out there, but Unbreakable is there. There's others that you would enjoy also. But this one came to me and I retweeted it. And I said, the one who is a much better example is President Trump. And so I put POTUS on there, real Donald Trump on there, and Poppy Trump, El Donaldo Trumpo. And so I don't know if we can bring that up.
I'm working on it now. We will have it there in just a moment.
That's okay. And